Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dinner time is here. That's right, we're talking about Hannibal, Season 3, Episode 12, on Dish by Dish. Greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from the Baltimore Institute for the Criminally Insane. This is Dish by Dish, an offshoot of Kill by Kill, where we talk about an episode of Hannibal. And of course, this time we've moved up to episode 12. The number of the beast is 666. This will be episode number 1 for this Friday, as we're doubling up in anticipation of our fun and fantastic fall offerings. But of course, there's only one person I trust that if I get something stuck in my digestive tract, she will work through yoga to move it through my system. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
I'm so excited to talk about this episode. This is the one of this run that I was most looking forward to covering.
I mean, this is the most Gina episode since season 2, really, of Hannibal. And longtime listeners will know the reason why. Short-term listeners might be somewhat confused, but I promise you, Gina will not leave you hanging as to the reason why. And it's not just all about Raul Esparza. No. You may think a little less of me, but I will just have to live with those consequences. I think it's reasonable. I think over the course of 6+ years, you've worked this into enough conversations to know that there's something about a person being strapped to a wheelchair, set on fire, and rolled down a hill that just makes you happy inside.
Yeah. Anything involving like an obvious dummy in a wheelchair. Yes. just really makes me incredibly happy. Like, have you seen, I believe it's Children of the Corn 2?
Yes. One of those things we're just going to have to tackle one of these days, the Children of the Corn franchise.
Yes. A very obvious dummy in a wheelchair is flanged through the window of a bingo hall, which is pretty fucking great.
It's almost like launched out of a cannon or a catapult. It's... is it hit by a car? I can't even remember.
It is hit by a car. Yes.
Okay.
Well, somehow, like the evil kid, one of the evil kids manages to hack her wheelchair with a remote control, sure. And so she's like popping wheelies and doing donuts in the middle of the street.
Because when you think about small communities of children who are surrounded by a cornfield ruled by a demonic underworld dweller and are pushed to kill all the adults in their town, you also think, oh, I can hack that wheelchair. That makes total sense.
That's why it's so good.
It's very true. So what were we talking about again? Oh, that's right. The penultimate episode of Hannibal. And so we start in the cold open with Will and Bedelia's confab of which one of them is worse. And the answer I think I'm coming back to is both.
Oh, they're both equally terrible. They are both equally terrible. I think that Bedelia at this point is probably a little more horrified at what has taken place and what she has done than Will is. Where Will is, I don't know, Will is a strange character in this in this half of the season. Like, you really don't know what he thinks about anything. Like, you don't know if he feels that this was all the means to the end of stopping these killers. If he's just gone full serial killer mode at this point. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to tell what trajectory his character is going, which is why I think the show had to end the way it did. Yeah.
But we will get to that. Let's explore this particular episode for what it is before we discuss the end. And we will we're double decking these episodes because we got a very full fall with lots of fun stuff to come. So it's not that that's why we give each episode its own due. So Will suggests that Bedelia is next on Hannibal's list for revenge, that he's not alone in terms of being on the menu. And Bedelia's response is, Hannibal will only kill me by his own hand, and only if he can also eat me. And he's in no position to eat me now. You don't want to call down the thunder like that. You just don't.
No, that's just like you're just asking for it. I don't like to use the phrase "you're asking for it," but she's asking for it.
Karmically, she's absolutely asking for it. She's also telling all of this to the one guy who cannot keep his fucking trap shut around Hannibal. So that's really fucking stupid. And then Will, out of this conversation, says something that I'm sure is directly meant to, engage in the Hannigram crowd, and they deserve red meat as much as the rest of us. But his question is Hannibal in love with me? And the answer is yes, bitch. You've been in love with each other for 3 fucking seasons.
It's like, are you seriously asking me that?
It is goddamn wild that he has to verbalize this. And I know why he is, but it is just so plainly fucking obvious to anyone with eyes, and anyone who's still watching this season. You don't wander in at the second to last episode. So it can't be new information to anybody. It's a little odd that he's like, I don't know. Do you think he has feelings for me? Yes, no one stabs each other that fucking much unless they have feelings for each other.
Yeah, it's like, he might as well just be handing Hannibal a piece of paper. Says, do you like me? Check yes or no.
Right. There's all sorts of extraneous information on his MASH note, which he would be able to pass him because it is soft paper. Jack and Will decide that they have to draw the dragon in. They can't wait for the dragon to try to kill again. The lunar cycle almost killed Will's family. So, all right, what can they do to sort of be, rather than reactive, be proactive? The idea that they glom onto is to use our old pal from murderstab.org, Freddie Lowndes, as a trap. But
not in the way you think they're going to. If you read the book and saw the other movies,
right? So they're like, well, that seems too obvious, which also seems like a conversation with itself. And then Alana says, well, I'd be a fool to volunteer, and she instantly jumps to the top of how smart are you, but still not as smart as Hannibal list. She's rockets to number 2 right here. And of course, as soon as she says, I'd be a fool, smash cut to Dr. Frederick. I've still got some body parts left to lose, Chilton.
My limbs are still attached, Chilton.
Honestly, I mean, he's been hollowed out. He's been shot through the fucking face. And as soon as the camera lands on him, you're like, okay. Yes, the guy who's been ended in 2 separate seasons of Hannibal and still not died. Sure, maybe he's the sacrifice play there. And in the middle of this conversation, Chilton's conversation with Hannibal, he uses a phrase that I think we might have to make into a t-shirt. Quantifiably bitchy.
Yes. Yeah, I like the version of Chilton from Silence of the Lambs, but yeah. I think he just mostly comes off as officious.
Yes, I was about to say officious.
Yeah, where the Chilton here comes off as like really small and petty and insecure, and but at the end you end up feeling sorry for him.
Right. I mean,
because these people, all of them are perfectly happy to offer him up as a sacrificial lamb. All of them. And it's like, just like, yeah, I mean, Alana seems like she might feel a little bad about it afterwards, but like, everybody else is like, well, he was a pain in the ass. Nobody liked him. But, it's like, dude, he was tortured,
multiple times.
And it didn't work. Your plan did not work.
That being said, like Chilton has done some truly heinous things on this show, and he has learned but nothing from any of it. It doesn't matter how much of his insides get on the outside. He just doesn't seem to grasp that he's out of his fucking depth. He's such a desperate pick-me that he's like, yeah, I'll volunteer for this. And this is after, in the book, this is all happening before Francis goes after Will's family. In this timeline, it's after. So it's particularly stupid. But of course, Hannibal's revving him up to do something by publishing in a psychology journal that essentially all of Chilton's ideas in his book were wrong, and he's not clinically insane. And that would essentially put him in danger for the death penalty, but it's worth it to get Chilton's goat yet again.
Right. But yeah, it's just funny to me that not a single person, not a single primary character in this show walks away without being responsible for something terrible happening to another human being.
Right. Yeah.
Whether or not you could say, well, that character deserved it. Like obviously Mason Verger deserved whatever terrible thing happened to him. Yes. When you are responsible for murdering someone, regardless of, how bad of a person they were, it's weird to me that all these people just keep trying to go back to having a normal life, and it's impossible.
Yeah. And to that light, the goal here is to have Freddie basically take dictation from Chilton, who soft pedals his ideas, and then Jack pushes them into farther territory, including alluding that Francis, the dragon, it is secretly a homosexual, is ugly, is sexually impotent, is driven to do these things because he comes from a home of incest. These are not great accusations, and perhaps we should have a bit of a content warning when we put this particular episode out, because these are all vile accusations, and it does go to further demonstrate that Will and Jack in particular, they have lost any moral compass they may have had at any given point.
Right, exactly. And yeah, nobody can walk away from the show except maybe Scott Thompson and the other guy. They're like the only decent people, and Reba.
True, Reba remains top notch. No notes. Reba is good to go, but everyone else is kind of morally dubious to a great degree. I will say that Zeller, way back in season 1, was selling information to murderstab.org. So
that's true. That's true.
That's the only sort of callback for him that I feel is a real problem. Whereas, Scott Thompson is Jimmy Price, also in Reba territory, perfect human being, would hang out with, love his whole vibe. Definitely dig the mustache. I
think the funny thing with all these characters, though, is they've all done these terrible things, but they've convinced themselves that it's less terrible than the terrible things the other people have done.
Yes. And during this whole sequence, which we've seen before in other media, what I really liked about this, we're going to trap the dragon, and we're going to show him a clue as to where I am, so he'll come after me. But what I like about this version is Freddy's taking the picture with the open window, and Jack raises her arms to make a better shot. I just thought he's directing in this circumstance. I just like that little piece.
Yeah. They really want to set this trap.
Yes. And of course,
that gets a man horribly mutilated.
yes, that just totally goes awry, as it does go awry in every version, but it doesn't go awry with Chilton involved, whose protection is shot through the head, and he's stolen off into the night and glued to a wheelchair, which I always find just not fun. It's just oh, Jesus Christ. What an image. What an idea to plant into my head. And there's some discussion between Chilton, who's really out of his depth and never makes any inroads with Francis in terms of, here's a guy who has talked to very mentally unstable people and finds no purchase with any of his tools.
He's terrible. He's terrible at his job. I don't know how he became in charge of the hospital at one point, because he is absolutely the most ineffectual psychiatrist I've ever encountered in my entire life.
He has failed all the way up. And then out of a job and into a cushier situation, which he is a published author of a bestseller. So maybe even several at this point. But their convo is interrupted by Reba. And Chilton's told, don't say anything or I'll kill her. And miraculously, he doesn't. But this is when, Francis says, listen, you can't be here. I got things going on. Like, this is a bad relationship.
I got a panty on my head.
And as good as the sex was, and when I came in my pants, this is not, I'm very afraid of hurting you. And so she leaves, and the dragon then takes over and says, will you tell the world about me, about my art? Will you rate and review me on Apple Podcasts to help me be seen and heard by more people?
Will you like it? Will you like and subscribe? Well, I do
hit the bell to get more.
I do love this. I do love this sequence, and I mentioned this in the last episode, because it takes a little from every column A and column B of every adaptation of the Hannibal series, where it's got a lot from the original Manhunter. It's got a shot taken directly from Red Dragon when he's standing in front of the screen and you can see the whole tattoo. But also he's doing a little Buffalo Bill thing too. Like he's he's definitely dropping that register a couple octaves and walking around with the kimono on and all. And it's like, okay, now we're dabbling in Buffalo Bill territory a little bit.
Where do you think, I mean, that is the one thing. He has a very different style from other versions of Francis Dolarhyde. Like, the way Tom Noonan dresses in Manhunter, it's of a piece. Like, you don't, like, obviously wherever he shops, it's one place and it's fucking insane.
Right. Whereas it's all very out of time. Like he's got like these very 70s looking shirts and I think he was supposed to look like he shopped at like thrift stores.
Right. And here, that tiger striped silk robe that he's wearing seems to kind of come out of nowhere.
Well, like I said, I think it's supposed to be a little a bit of Jamie Gum.
Oh yeah, sure. No, I like it. Does feel part of a universe, and while the last episode was a bit slow for both of us, here was the first episode in a while where I yelled "Jesus Christ" twice in a row. And the first one was him biting Chilton's lips all the fucking way off.
Yeah, they did not. In other versions, they sort of move the camera and you just hear him screaming. It's like, nope, they hold on that shot.
No, they're gonna give it to you, baby, on national broadcasting channel on NBC on a Friday fucking night. Here you go. Here's a guy's lips being bit off, and then they are mailed to Hannibal. They go through an x-ray machine and no one goes, I think there are 2 pieces of meat in this envelope. No one seems to say this, but it's not a bomb and it's not a knife. So I guess it comes through and Hannibal goes like, can I open this alone? And Alana's like, no, no. he opens up the envelope and there are the two lips. And you're like, holy shit. And then when we come back from the commercial break, we learn that only one lip is left because Hannibal swallowed one of them.
So did he just do that right in front of? Did he just do that right in front of Alana?
Like, oh yeah, he doesn't move.
Take one, like snack on it like a fruit roll up.
Like it's a fucking Swedish fish. He just swallows the whole goddamn thing. And I think my question to you about that is, mailed lips can't be that good, right?
Yeah, I mean, they had to be at the most recent 24 hours old, because they said that they mentioned that Chilton had disappeared the day before. So yes. I guess Dolarhyde's overnight express that shit.
Well, there's not. Now that I'm thinking back to this, and I didn't note this at the time, but I'm thinking about it. It doesn't have a mail stamp on it, so maybe it was just dropped off. So it is relatively fresh, but it's not like Hannibal's like, I'll take any piece of human meat.
Yeah, I thought he was very much into the freshest ingredients.
Yes. So going back to the whole Silence of the Lambs of it, he does like to bite a lip or a tongue. And so he just swallows that thing, and the look on his face, he's so happy.
Yeah, it's like you've been eating like Impossible burgers for a while and you have a Big Mac. It's like it's like it sets out that tilt sign in your brain. It's like, I forgot how good this was.
When Jack and Will are there and he's like strapped up in his stand-up wheelchair, and he's like, well, listen, you can get all the information from the one lip that you could have gotten from the other. Like, come on. What do you want me to do about it?
Did you think I was not going to eat this?
I mean, this just, I think that's a problem with you more than me. And so while they're having this conversation, Chilton goes flame on in the very same park that Will and Jack set up as a trap. But of course, no one else is there because they are not there. So the trap is not set. Let's just say, even with this, he pushes him towards a fountain so that he's put out. And somehow the fact that he's super glued to this thing does not prevent him from getting out of the wheelchair and not drowning in the fountain. What can kill this man? Yeah,
the thing you have to understand, folks, is Chilton. When I say he ends up head in a fishbowl by the end of the series, I don't mean that literally, but he is still alive when we last see him, and no one says anything at any point about him dying, and he's basically a briquette.
Yeah, if this show ever does get a season 4, he would just be a talking skeleton.
He looks like, to reference another Mr. Show, because I just rewatched all of Mr. Show last weekend. Remember Titanica? Remember when he's like a twig with a head on it because he threw himself into a vat of acid?
Yes.
That's basically Chilton at this point. Except even his head looks like the worst part.
Yeah.
But he still can think clearly. So, that must mean that he's feeling a insane amount of pain. So It's just like, my God, just put a pillow over this man's face.
Seriously, like cut off the oxygen.
Put him out of his misery.
There's
nobody dies on this show. Nobody dies.
And they're really put through the paces of dying. And yet no one really commits to the bit. So, out of this revelation, we see that Reba has been kidnapped and tied up in Francis' van. And Francis reveals the dragon to Reba in Mama's bedroom. And that pretty much does it. In terms of choosing our own death venture, we can't choose the wheelchair because he doesn't die.
I would not want that.
Shot in the head or get shot in the head.
I would not want that anyway. They linger on that shit.
Yeah, he's a crispy critter, that's for sure. It's tough, man. I don't like any part of it. As much as I like to see people on fire in terms of safe stunt work. And I might note that the sequence in which they show his face when he gets lit on fire is hauntingly beautiful. I mean, once again, Hannibal knocks it out of the park when it comes to displaying the most grotesque things in the most beautiful way possible.
Yeah, I mean, if you were, I think this is probably the highlight episode of this run of this part of the season, because
Yes.
it feels like, it feels like I see the word old Hannibal because the show had only been on for 3 seasons. Like I feel like it went back to how the show originally felt, just like
Yes.
gruesome and nightmarish, but also weirdly poetic and beautiful at the same time.
And operatic, yes.
Right.
So heightened and yet so grisly at the same time. It's just a balance that is so hard to do. And it's I don't know that a show has come up with that exact formula since. What can you say? It's a singular work. But that pretty much rounds it out. Josh Halls does our artwork. Revenge Body does all of our songs. So you can go to revengebodymemphis@bandcamp.com and you can hear this remix and all of the other tunes associated with the show. Gina, where can people see and hear more from you on these here internets?
I write about television and movies at thespool.net, and I am on Twitter under Gina Does Things.
Do it today. People, check it out. You know where all our socials are on the Twitter. We got the Facebook group. You can find us on Instagram. We're on Patreon. We have lots of cool special things that only exist there for you to check out. And of course, you can rate and review us on iTunes or the podcatcher of your choice, so that we can be seen and heard by more people. We always appreciate it. And so that just about does it. But don't worry, there's a next episode that's already in your feed from us, where we're going to talk about the finale of season 3 of Hannibal. So for myself and for Gina, bye-bye, everybody.